What's going on, everybody? Harrison Graham here with another episode of Bears Now. More updates on the Chicago Bears coaching search. We'll kick things off with that. Plus, the Bears have signed 9 players to contracts. Full details on that as well. Let's start with who is reportedly set to interview today. Mike Vrabel, who's expected to be in the building at Hallis Hall, for all we know, is in the building right now, is kicking off their interviews. And then Drew Petzing, the Cardinals offensive coordinator, is going to interview tonight. I believe that one will be virtual. Let's start with the big fish here, Mike Vrabel. Is he realistic? Because he's considered, it's either him or Ben Johnson when you add up all the open jobs in terms of who's the top available candidate. They're definitely, 1A, 1B, whichever order you want to make it, depending on the team, probably. Are the Bears truly in the mix for Vrabel? Because obviously it seems like the Patriots are full steam ahead. They completed their Rooney Rule yesterday. They actually interview Vrabel tomorrow. Some believe that deal could be done as soon as Friday. Tom Brady and the Raiders, I would expect them to make a push since that job opened up yesterday. There's also a new report that just dropped that Brady has reached out to Bill Belichick, who agreed to be the North Carolina head coach, so that could get pretty interesting as well. Here's my take on the Vrabel situation. If Friday comes and goes the day after Thursday when he interviews with New England, I think it's open season. I think that means that he is going to listen to multiple teams. He's going to be, I'm not going to say start a bidding war, but he's not going to go all in on New England. Now, if I was a betting man, I think he ends up being the Patriots head coach. But, again, you get through Friday, more time goes on, he's hearing from other teams, things can change, and they can change quick. So that's kind of what I put on the timeline there in terms of Vrabel. We'll see how the interview goes today with the Bears. He already interviewed with the Jets as well, so he's got a lot of teams lined up ready to talk to him. Okay, let's talk about the other guy interviewing tonight. Drew Petzing. Who is Drew Petzing? And I feel like I've been a little bit harsh, talking about this Bears coaching search, feeling a little bit too lengthy of a list, and some people have DM'd me, well, if they're waiting on Ben Johnson, you might as well interview as many guys. Okay, fine. I wouldn't interview 15 guys, but if they want to, I suppose it's not the end of the world. Petzing does have a connection to Kevin Warren, as they overlapped in Minnesota for a few years. He was assistant up there. Obviously, Warren was in that organization for a while. He's engineered 2 decent offenses with Arizona. I didn't mention that, Kyler Murray and Caleb Williams come from a similar background in the sense that they both played under Lincoln Riley, similar offenses in college. Somewhat, their play styles definitely overlap, but they are different players. So I'm not acting like there's no reason at all to talk to this guy. I just think there's far better candidates out there. Feels like a courteous interview, and you see this sometimes in these coaching searches where teams will just do people they know well a courtesy. Interview them, help raise their profile. Maybe they get surprised by them and take them more seriously. But Kevin Warren knows Drew Petzing. The same is true with Mike Kafka, who I believe is interviewing tomorrow. Him and Ryan Poles overlap for 5 years in Kansas City. Neither feel like serious candidates. But, maybe I was a little too harsh in calling it a waste of time. I still kind of is. But whatever. No harm, no foul, I guess. You just don't want to fall in love with someone because he maybe has an awesome interview when he really isn't ready to be a head coach. Like that's my concern. Like, narrow your focus on who you really like and find a way to get one of those guys. Okay, we're trying to get to our next milestone in subscribers here on Bears Now. 271 away from 113,000 on the channel. You guys are awesome. You guys are incredible. We will continue to crank out content here on a daily basis here on Bears Now by Chat Sports. Coaching search updates. Once they hire a head coach, we'll talk about assistant coaches, free agency, draft, offseason just getting rolling here. Plus, the plan as of now is to do a Packers-Eagles Sunday watch party here on the channel. So if you want more of the Harrison and Cullen watch party combo, we got you guys covered. Okay, let's talk some other coaching notes. I did a short on this last night, but we'll talk a little bit more as Mike McCarthy was someone they put in an interview request for the Cowboys. He is under contract through January 14th with Dallas. The Cowboys took about a day, and they ultimately denied that request. Now, what does that mean? That the most obvious reason for a denial would be the Cowboys are trying to bring back Mike, right? They're working on a contract to bring him back to Dallas. Another reason could be is they haven't decided what they're going to do yet, and they don't have to allow an interview to take place until his contract is up on January 14th. So we'll see what happens. It's January 8th now, so at this point, if they're going to interview McCarthy, it would have to be the 14th or 15th at the earliest. My gut tells me that ship has sailed and that he's going to stay in Dallas, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, Pete Carroll, another not current, but head coach that's won a Super Bowl. He was with the Seahawks as of 2 seasons ago, is going to interview with the Bears tomorrow. I would also assume that's in person because he's a coaching free agent, kind of like Mike Vrabel. Obviously, we've gone through the pros and cons of Pete. He's 73 years old. He's energetic for that age, but you would say at best that's probably like a 5 or 6 year kind of window with him. Now, if he instantly turns you into a contender, you'd take it because you haven't won in a while. But there's questions there. Who are his assistants? Who's going to be his offensive coordinator? What's the plan to develop Caleb Williams? So, I said it, on Christmas Day when Adam Schefter reported that he wants to get back into coaching and he's interested in the Bears job. You should interview him. But he should be viewed as like a fallback option, like if shit hits the fan, well, we know Pete wants back in, so we could circle back to him if we miss out on, our top 2, 3, 4 guys, whatever the case may be. Would you put Pete Carroll in your top 5? Like, would he crack your top 5 head coaching candidates for this job? He'd be fringe there. I'd probably have him just outside the top 5. He'd be top 10. Again, to me, he's got to be like the floor of who you end up with when it comes to this coaching cycle. So let me know. Y for yes and for no. Is he in your top 5? All right. The Bears have signed 9 players to their roster. We will dive into those players a little rapid fire here in just a moment. But first, we got to tell you guys about our friends, our sponsor, Rocket Money. I've been telling you guys about Rocket Money for a long time now because I cannot recommend them enough. It is the best financial app I have ever used. It's better than any banking app I've ever used because it's super user-friendly, and B, they legitimately have helped me and my wife save hundreds, probably over $1,000 at this point for how long I've used them. They can help you find and cancel any subscriptions you no longer want. How do they do that? It lists out the subscriptions on one screen. You realize how much you're spending on each one. You realize that money is a lot, and if you want to cancel any of them, you click a few buttons, and they serve as kind of a middleman for you. They will help you get rid of those subscriptions. Maybe you don't use a streaming service anymore. Maybe you're signed up for some online newspaper that you don't read anymore, and you can scale back on your spending. You can manage budgets with Rocket Money. If you use Rocket Money's fullest features as a member, you can save up to $740 per year. Think about what you could do with an extra $700 right now. You could go on a vacation. You could start a college fund. You could go on several nice dinners. Whatever the case may be, rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. They are going to help you stay on top of your finances, lower your spending. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Get going with Rocket Money. rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. It's rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. Link is in the comments and in the description. Download the app today by using our link. Okay, Bears sign 9 players to futures contracts. Remember, when the offseason starts for these teams, you can expand your roster from 53 to 90 players. There's no offseason practice squad. So typically you see a lot of teams sign, 8 to 15 players, a lot of whom were on their practice squads to keep them on the 90-man for the offseason. Once OTAs and all that stuff gets here to have extra bodies. And who knows, some of these guys could crack the 53 next year. So little rapid fire. Quarterback Austin Reed, who was a training camp in Hard Knocks darling. He was the 3rd quarterback this year, especially once they lost Brett Rippon to Minnesota. He is back on a futures deal. So is wide receiver John Jackson. Remember, he and Caleb overlapped at USC for 1 year. They know each other well. So he is on the practice squad. I think he may have been elevated for a game at some point this year. Might have played in one game. I'd have to double check that. Samori Toure, former Green Bay Packers wide receiver. They picked him up like right at the beginning of the season on the practice squad. Not sure if he was ever elevated, but he is now on a futures deal. Tight end Joel Wilson. Don't know much about him, if I'm being completely honest, but I do know this just in general for the tight end position. I think that's a sneaky position this offseason that we're going to have to talk about because for a lot of different angles. Ideally, whoever you bring in here utilizes Cole Kmet a lot more. You paid him $12 million per year. Like, he's a good player. You need to use him. And B, what does that room look like after him? Gerald Everett has one more year left on his deal. Is he in their plans? I would imagine that depends on the coach. He gave you basically nothing this year. Do you bring back Mercedes Lewis for a third season? He's over 40 now. Kind of feels like you should go in a new direction. So just to kind of tangent there to the tight end position, I think that's something to keep an eye on. This is a name I'm intrigued by, Ricky Stromberg. He was a center out of Arkansas a couple years ago, third-round pick. Didn't work out, had some injuries, but I think he's someone to monitor to push for a roster spot. Now, I don't think you can view him as a potential starting center option for 2025, but could he be your backup? If you don't like anyone in the draft or in free agency, do you bring back Coleman Shelton and go with Stromberg as your backup over a Doug Kramer type? Maybe he competes with Kramer for a roster spot. I definitely wouldn't rule that out. Theo Benedet, remember, he was also a Hard Knock star, the Canadian Eagle or whatever Eberflus called him. He was pretty entertaining. Has some interesting tools. I don't know if he's ever a 53-man guy, but certainly worth exploring there. Offensive lineman Chris Glaser, he's an interior versatile guy, can play guard, can play center. Carl Jones, special teamer, linebacker type, he's back as well. And then defensive lineman Jamree Kromah, who I know they liked in training camp. Wasn't going to make the 53, but was like kind of a preferred practice squad guy. They didn't want to lose him, so he is back on the 90-man roster as well, which is the reminder here. You can expand your rosters up to 90 in the offseason. Now, obviously, you're not going to get close to 90 and so until you go through free agency, until you go through the draft, all of that stuff. But 9 more players added to the roster at this point in time for Chicago. Now, as far as big fish go, name a player you want the Bears to sign in free agency, trade for, or draft in April's NFL draft. If you had to pick one guy not on this team that you would like to add to this roster, who would that player be? Let us know in the comment section down below. And we'll be back later this afternoon, probably with more coaching search updates. There's some interesting juice on one name that we haven't talked about a ton yet. I've kind of hinted at it. Stay tuned for that little teaser, as we call it in the biz. My name is Harrison Graham. Hit that sub button, bear down, and we'll see you soon.